everybody, Justin at Vintage 55 Garage here, doing another walkthrough. This one's real special to me. Hopefully you enjoyed the other ones. Hope you enjoy this one. This is my 1955 Ford F100 truck. This is what started me on all of this stuff. This is what started me on old stuff. This is what started me on mechanical stuff. And this is actually what gave Vintage 55 Restorations its name, 55 Ford. I like the number 55 after that, being a teenager and being dumb, and so I'd put 55 into everything. And then when I chose business name, when I first started doing anything antiques, it was Vintage 55, and then it just kind of stuck. So anyway, when I got this, it was literally a pile in my neighbor's backyard. It was frame sitting on the ground with all the pieces stuck up in it, motor halfway apart, filled with water, dead possum inside, no seat, no interior, no glass. Big piece of work. But I was 15. My dad said, hey, my dad's a mechanic. My dad said, hey, you're gonna be driving soon. I got 3 choices for you for a car. Because my parents are awesome like that. He said you can have our Camaro. We had, being a mechanic now, I know that cars constantly cycle through families of car guys. We had like 4 cars at the time. We had a 3rd gen Camaro, tan, really, whatever. And insurance would have been crazy, obviously. Or his friend had a celebrity sedan that I could have had from the 80s, which is terrible. Nobody ever wants one of those. Or our neighbor has a truck. Our neighbor had passed away about a year earlier. He was kind of like a 3rd grandpa to me. And they left me the truck, apparently, if I wanted to build it with my dad. So I go, what truck? I didn't even know what they're talking about. I go over there, and there's a big pile in the backyard. I said, cool, that. And so my dad said, well, you're going to build it with me. You know, it's going to take a couple years. And so I said, that's fine. So we started working, thinking it was going to be easy. It's not easy. I knew tools. I was in wood shop for 3 years. I always did, done stuff with my hands. My dad being a mechanic, he'd always make me help him and stuff, but I didn't know anything about mechanics. I didn't know anything about turning a wrench. I didn't know anything about rebuilding a car. So I started learning, and great experience to teach a kid how to do something. Long-term commitment, makes you have patience, makes you determined and stubborn and skilled. And I will admit, most of those days were not fun. Working with my dad was sometimes great and sometimes terrible. Pulling a transmission in the pouring rain underneath the car in a puddle, while he's yelling at me from above because we have to bring the transmission into the trans shop the day after for a deadline. Not fun, but hearing it fire up for the first time while me and him are tinkering underneath the hood, and neither one of us really having the words to be excited about, and just high-fiving each other like 6 times. Those are good feelings. So if you're considering building something with a kid or a teenager or something like that, do it. Just don't expect it to be perfect, but once it's done, you'll have something that I'm never going to sell this thing. I'm never going to get rid of it. It's going to pass down to my family. It's got too much of my blood in it, and that's a really, really cool thing to share that kind of a bond with a machine, even though it's an inanimate object. You can see how much it's influenced my life, what I do now, and all the things we get into. So anyway, that's the story on this particular vehicle. When I go to get around the other side, I have a picture of the before when I got it. But the 1955 F100, this was the base model truck. Well, actually, I take it back. This was actually called a custom cab, and all that meant was it had an extra windshield wiper, piece on the front, a couple emblems on the sides, and a chrome strip on the inside, and it actually had an automatic transmission. It was called a Ford-O-Matic at the time because they didn't know what an automatic transmission was, but it was an automatic transmission, 2-speed, terrible transmission in terms of use. I mean, in dependability, it was actually a really good transmission. But anyway, when I got it, it had a 289 Mustang engine and a seat. I think it had no, it didn't have a transmission in it, I don't think. Anyway, it now has a 302 out of an '89 Mustang, all hopped up and bored, and a big cam, and a high intake and headers, and everything I could do to a 302 I've done to this, and a C4 attached to that, and a 9-inch rear end out of a Fairlane. So a lot of adapting. We did a disc brake kit in the front, so I have disc brakes, original drums in the rear still. On the front, obviously you can see the tow hooks. I shaved some of the emblems off that were on here before. You can see the grill is caved in. That's a recent addition, recent modification. Somebody hit and ran on my wife, and luckily nobody was hurt, but he pulled over, she pulled her after him, and he took off. And I fixed everything but the grill since then, which was a month and a half ago. But I haven't gotten around to the grill yet. Insurance paid us out. I'm actually going to be swapping the whole grill and headlight bucket system to a 56, which is a little bit different. Figure I might as well, and since I'm doing it, so that will be in the near future. Those are stock hubcaps. Everybody always asks me. All I did was add beauty rings and white walls. These are your custom cab emblems. Originally would have had large mirrors out here. I took those off for the peep mirror. The door lock is gone because at the moment the lock mechanism broke and I'm waiting for one in the mail. This is another thing about old cars. When you drive them every day, you're constantly fixing them. Step plates, those are a recent addition. Bed sides, I added these. I originally had a bed top on there for a long time that I made, a hard vinyl wrapped top, but I ended up using this thing as a truck way too much, and it was getting kind of to be a problem. And so I wanted to leave it open, but make it not horrible looking because I'm constantly scratching up the bed. So I put these up here to kind of block your eye, and actually it works really well. It levels the bed, the top of these, with this body line of the window, with the body line of the hood, which is something I think they should have done from the factory. A lot of custom trucks, when they customize these, they'll pancake the hood down to match that body line, or they'll extend the bed up to do the same thing, because it looks better when it's all even. You don't think about it, but you gotta have kind of that eye for it. Anyway, I made these for it. They slide into the stake beds, or the holes. It's got 54 Chevy truck taillights. The original Ford taillights looked really ugly, so I swapped these on there. This is the original 55 style plate. You can see it's longer. It actually it has a registration tag, metal tag that pops over this. It's in the glove box right now. An addition I made was underneath this is a hitch. I tow travel trailers. This tows a lot of them, if not just moving them around. And I wanted a hitch system on this. Did not have a hitch system, and I didn't want an ugly one sticking out the bottom. So what I did was I cut everything. I actually lifted the bumper 2.5 inches and tucked it in 1 inch, so it looks nice and clean now. It looks a lot better. It originally was kind of hanging out weird, because that was actually an option. You didn't have to get a bumper. You had to pay extra for a rear bumper. So anyway, after I sucked it in, I put the hitch system and framed it all in, and so now I can tow stuff, and I don't have an ugly hitch there. Tailgate would have originally had chains. I've removed those and put latches on the inside. I have a bed box in there that I made. That's a 1930s bustle box that would go on the back of a car on the bumper instead of a trunk. Before they had like a real trunk. I just thought it was awesome, so I painted it to match the truck, mounted it in my bed, put a lock on it. That's where I keep all my extra car parts, all my tools, all my tie downs, all that kind of stuff stays in there because there's not really much room in the cab. My spare tire is mounted to the side. It originally would have been under the bed, which when I made the whole hitch system, I had to get rid of that setup. So I put it in here, and there's a mount on the side that it lines up, and actually fits perfect with the bed box. I didn't plan it. Dual exhaust coming out the back. These are actually 2012 Corvette tailpipe ends. I originally had the Corvette mufflers too, which have a butterfly in them that open and make them straight exhaust after a certain point of power, but they weren't working right with this. This has a lot of power. It has like 340 horsepower, but not 2012 Corvette horsepower, and so it couldn't keep the butterflies closed, and so they'd kind of chatter all the time, and it was driving me crazy. So I wired them open, so they were just straight exhaust all the time, and then I couldn't hear after 3 days. It was killing inside the cab, and there's actually an entry, a little rubber grommet that I didn't know, 3-inch hole straight underneath the bench, right where the straight exhaust was dumping, and so it was giving me a headache all the time for 2 reasons. One was it was just really, really loud, and 2, it was filling the whole cab up with exhaust. So then I found that thing, popped a $2 piece of rubber in there. That problem was fixed, but I ended up going with Magnaflow, or no, Flowmasters after that. Tie down points all over the place. This is another sign of the custom cab. The extra trim level is this stainless steel drip rail that goes all the way around. You don't see that very often. Under the hood. So under the hood, I got a 302. Like I said, it looks kind of lost in here, but that's just because this is such a big engine bay. You can fit pretty much any motor in these. Even vertically, you can fit a blower underneath here with it vertically. The hood is so high. But like I said, it makes about 340 horsepower. Gets me around. I can peel the tires. It's always treated me real good. Big old radiator because it likes to try to overheat. Lots of upgrades on the motor, like I said before. Let's go inside. So, this is about. Let's see. I started building this when I was 15. I'm 31 now, so it's got about 15 years of preference modifications in it. It's looked different every 4 years that I've had it, basically. What it looks like now is probably going to stay this way for a while because now I'm mature and I'm an adult. Lots of little pinstriping pieces all around it. My friend Josh did a lot of it when I was in college. I did some of it later on once I learned how to pinstripe. The steering wheel is the biggest thing that is different in here. This is actually out of a 51 Ford car, a shoebox. Painted it black to match, and I always wanted one of these wheels. I didn't have anything cool to put it in. I was going to put it in the Lincoln, but then the Lincoln wheel was just too cool, so I had to leave that. And so I decided to put it in the truck, and I put the original truck one in the van. So and I got 2 wheels hanging up in the garage because I ever changed my mind. But the steering wheel looks really good in here, I think. So all separate gauges. This is not the original gauge cluster, but it is the original gauge hole. So this was actually a aftermarket one from in the 60s that somebody put in at that point and swapped out. Got my cup holder over here that I made out of a boat cup holder that rotates so it doesn't spill. My glove box has my stereo in it and other stuff. My headliner is just ribbed black, as well as my door panels, which I did all those, and then the kick plates with the speakers underneath, I did those as well. The seat actually is black ribbed and looks like it was made to match, but this actually came 10 years later. My friend, my upholstery friend, that's actually how I met him, Joe, had this for sale. It's actually a 55 Chevy truck bench, and it was already wrapped and everything here for $500. I said, what are the measurements on it? Got the measurements, and it fit perfect. So I grabbed it, made new bolt holes for it, plopped it in, good to go, and I love this thing. The brake and gas, there's no power brakes on this, so you can see how high up and down your leg has to go. And I actually took the original brake pedal off and put this Lucky Horseshoe welded on there instead. I got this at Catalina when I was 6 or 7 with my parents when we went there on a trip over the weekend, and there was a little ranch, and I got a pony shoe, and I held on to it for all those years, and then welded it onto my brake. And I got my Lucky Rabbit's foot that kind of goes with the same deal. I'm not actually superstitious. I just like the idea of it. It's kind of funny. Clovers and horseshoes and rabbit's feet and everything. Freaks my sister out because she loves rabbits, but that's okay. And sorry, any vegetarians or anything like that that are listening. I did not kill the rabbit; it was already dead. Any other things? My Rat Fink sticker. That's been there since I started driving it when I was 16. I threw a Ratfink on there. That's actually the third one, but I get more comments on that Ratfink sticker than I do on the truck. Because it's kind of one of those in the know things, like car guys that grew up doing, you know, Ed Roth models and things like that. Oh, Ratfink, I haven't seen one of those in 30 years. It's a good talking point. But anyway, my Ratfink sticker, I'm always gonna have one on there, even if I'm old. So that's it for this truck. I'll give you a little more history. The F100, this body style came out in 53. The one that this was based off of came out in 48. 48 to 52, they were called F1s, and a lot blockier, a lot more deco looking, a lot more Spartan. 53, this came out, and it was hailed as having kind of car comfort, lots of styling and comfort cues that there weren't in trucks before, because trucks were basically tractors before then. 53 came out, big giant hit. They changed it to F100 instead of F1, and designated the higher heavy-duty models accordingly. So that's when F100 started, F250, F350, F600, you know, all those ones. And it was F100, not F150, which is what you hear now, which has been that way since the 60s, late 60s, I believe, early 70s. They changed it to F150 because they beefed everything up for the base model. Anyway, 53, F100 came out, big hit. 54, all they did was change the grille and offer a couple other paint colors. 55, changed the grille again. That's it. That's all they did different. And then 56, it's the same body, but there are slight differences. So if you ever see one of these, you can tell the difference by looking at the grille, firstly, which I'm going to throw everybody off putting a 56 grille on my 55. You can narrow it down to the 56 is the only one with a different body modification. So on a 56, you have a totally different grille and headlight buckets. You also have a wraparound rear windshield instead of the smaller windshield that's in here. It's a big windshield. It's called a big window. And then the biggest difference is on your door. This is an angle, and you have these triangle wind wings. On the 56, this is square because the front window wraps around more. And you get what's called a dogleg pillar. It's square, and then you have rectangular wind wings. And so this whole thing actually extends over to here, and then cuts over and makes an angle. So if you see rectangular wind wings, it's a 56. If you see any triangle wind wings, it's a 53, 54, 55. And if the whole thing looks like a different truck, it's 48 to 52. But they were a huge hit after 56. 57, they changed to what was called style side, which was what you would think of today as a modern truck, flat all the way across. Running boards disappeared, fender disappeared, and they moved to the inside of the bed. You can still order this box, this exact box, up into the 70s. It was called the flare side. It was an option. You can get this put on your 70s truck instead. And they actually would have the original tail lights still on them that look like shields and say Ford on them from the 50s. But yeah, great truck. It established Ford as the truck company. Obviously, F100 has had a great run transforming into F150, and I think F250 is actually probably the best selling now. But great run, still, you know, #1 truck maker. In fact, they're going to be canceling making cars in the U.S. other than the Mustang and making trucks. So this is the truck that kind of started all that and established that whole course. And it's also the first real modern truck that had chrome, that had it had 2 sun visors and had 2 windshield wipers, and, you know, different things that were considered options at the time. Real cool truck, real cool history. One of the most commonly restored vehicles. You can find these pretty cheap, and you can find all the parts for them too. So if it's something cool, this is a great starter vehicle to get into classic cars. And it's just a great car, great truck to me as a history. It's what started me down all this. So this is the 1955 F100. I'm Justin. This is Vintage 55 Garage. Thank you guys.